It's pretty impressive. He said they're serious people.
I hope he's happy. I know he was unhappy.
No, just trying to figure out what might not. There's so much,
They're familiarizing themselves.
it's not infrastructure, but there's so much that either wasn't done or is happening that
Good, I'm happy for him.
has potential to be the culprit.
Only thing better if you come to work.
Problems with some of these storms, because I've been in that house for 20 years. And the fact that all of us are new, it's just not, and the roads are so bad now.
Is 40th the one that goes to the water tanks? It's the one below that?
Yeah, it's the one below it. State of the right.
This is the interest.
Then I'm gonna go in and request payment to be added to my rights.
We're unmuted up there. And then mute.
How are you?
Yes.
I try not to go that often.
How you doing, Bruno?
Doing all right.
Yeah?
Last 2 copies.
Depends what we want to talk about, but I'm doing all right. I like to suppress things. It's healthy.
Take them out on your wife when you get home. You don't have a dog, do you?
I do.
You don't kick it, do you?
No, I try not to do those
He
things.
just goes in the back room.
I do call her dumb from time to time. Because she's not the brightest. Yes, no, my wife's amazing. That would be
I
the
noticed,
end of my marriage.
I noticed her putting a lot of the water main in my belt.
Because of all the work that's happening.
Amazing what happens when you get your K's rattled a little bit. $450,000.
It's never a bad thing to,
No,
All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's about 2:02 in the afternoon. And we're going to call the meeting to order. Would you like to take a roll call, please?
Sure. Member Almond? Here. Member Silva?
Here.
Member Scholes?
Here.
Member Sabatier?
here,
And Chair Colburn?
Here.
Just as a reminder, our sound is coming into the speakers above the screen. So when you speak, we have people on Zoom speak loudly so they can hear you.
Okay,
may I ask you a quick question? How many people do we have on Zoom?
We have one.
And it's not me.
No, it is not.
and Ray, would you like to lead some pledge allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Or additional resolutions from the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda, Mr. Chair.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to oppose because I wanted to have my issue considered. So
Oh, but it's not on the agenda.
it's not on the agenda.
Okay.
Manage that, I don't care. But it would be nice. I would do it under public comment.
Okay, let's just do it in a public comment. Because none of us have had prior
I
access.
understand. Yes, well, I understand.
Okay, we'll do that. Okay, time for public comment. This is the time for any member of the public to address the Measure B Oversight Board on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. The Brown Act, with limited exceptions, does not allow the Measure B Oversight Board or staff to discuss issues brought forth under public comment. The board cannot take action on non-agenda items. Concerns may be referred to staff or placed on the next available agenda. Please note that comments from the public will also be taken on each agenda item, and comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. Is there any public comment?
I have a question. I feel Ellen in my house. I just got this notice today about the meeting at 2. And so I haven't had a chance to review any of this stuff. I'm here mainly concerned about where I live in the village and that our roads have not been paved. They've been patched, but they've not been paved since this amendment passed, I think a dozen or so years ago. So that's my main concern for being here to find out if they're going to be actually paved in the near future. I don't know if that's on the agenda again.
Any other public comment? There we go.
So I have an issue with, the roads on West 40th Street, between Mullen and Old 53. I've given you, a letter on it regarding, what I consider, the deterioration of the road is now causing problems, both from potholes as well as, the structure, because of, yeah, it's just a problem that is coming forth, and I'm concerned we hold up the road. There's 4 or 5 of us with large retaining walls, and we're having problems with this, with the roads because of the potholes. I mean, there's lots of potholes, and it's alligator as well. Thank you. And I've given you all the letters.
Right, we'll give this to the city. I think this is something that could lead to potential litigation of some form in the future. So I think this, talking to the city engineers and attorneys to see if you can get your problem resolved would probably be the best thing to do. As this committee doesn't really decide what roads get fixed when, we oversee the money to see that the money is being used as provided for in the ordinance. And that's why this financial is here, so we can take a look at that. The rows and the rotation of what gets fixed is for the city council to decide with the recommendations from the city engineers and planners and how they go about, their priorities.
Isn't the city engineer supposed to do this?
I don't,
He's out of the office today. I don't know when you get.
I don't think there's a
Yeah, I've
legal
seen him for a
requirement.
while.
He was at the last one.
He was at the list.
Okay, any other public comment on Zoom?
There are no comments on Zoom.
Okay. Anyone else in the room? Okay, seeing none, we'll move along to business. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from our October 12th, 2023 meeting?
Yeah.
And Bruno looks like he doesn't remember that.
I'm just trying to figure out why I abstained to the agenda last time.
You were not present in the
Oh.
room.
You were a little bit late, I think.
So maybe
You were a little bit late.
absent from the vote rather than abstain. Abstain sounds like a stated
it's
thing
not
that
gonna
I
work.
did.
Yeah, I could change the wording. I can do that.
I apologize that I was a little late that day for that meeting.
Any other additions or changes recommended in the minutes?
I move to approve the meeting minutes with an amendment to absent from abstain for the approval of the agenda.
Do we have a second? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, meeting minutes have been approved. Okay, now it's time to review the prior year expenditures and review the updated Measure B plan, resolution OC 2024-01. And would you like to read us a little bit through the financial part?
We're going to read this off. We have Matt Cressy on the Zoom who will go over the expenditures for
Okay.
the previous year. You're on, Matt.
Great, thank you. So before is the prior year expenditures for the year ending.
1 second.
Is there feedback?
We're going to turn you up.
Okay.
Okay, try that.
Try.
How-
Okay.
All right. So annually, Measure B committee reviews the prior year expenditures and takes a look to see that they're being spent for their regular purpose. And the resolution just documents that, the formal approval or review. The report is before you, and that shows the revenues, and the revenues are coming right on target with what was expected, 2.637 million. We received 2.602, so about 34,000 under what we estimated. So that's basically 1.31% on target. And the next section under it is all the expenditures. We have both salaries of staff that work on projects and all of their related, salary and benefit costs. And then we have the bigger costs are related to capital projects and an outlay. And then, of course, the debt service, which was a loan, the annual principal amount paid back. This was I think the second year of principal and interest. And so it was 1,557,000 of principal and 430,000 of interest. And those proceeds from that, when it was originally borrowed, are accounted for in the next fund, which is the next section, Fund 221. And that shows the expenditures and the related improvements in the city, road improvements that occurred during the year. And that totals 1.2 million. So as far as total expenditures, we have, aside from the loaned amount, that was moving back up in the middle of the first page, 2.5 million and so forth. So I do have the details of those expenditures, and I think staff there probably could speak to, the Public Works Director could probably speak more to exactly, what segments of roads were improved and so forth. But the financial report is pretty straightforward. There is 4 pages. Then page 3 is just a summary of revenue and expenses for each of the 2 funds that account for Measure V. And then the 4th page is just the net, essentially revenue minus expenses, just another way to look at the same information. I think most everything is on the first page that has all the expenditures, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Hi. The Measure V Loan Fund, I do have a question about the interest adjustment. There's 2 numbers there. Are they both interest paid on the money that was sitting in the LAIF account, that 520 and the 342? Or
Yes.
they're both money that we took in because of taking the loan?
So the middle to bottom of the first page has interest of 520,000. That is invested in the pooled investments, and LAIF is the biggest investment, and so it did earn 520,000. When the loan was made, those proceeds are then in an interest-bearing account and earning interest. So that's why that's so high until those are drawn down and projects get off the ground and funds are spent. So that, and on the top part, it's only 18,000 interest income. And that's just because as the money comes in, it's pretty much spent and there's not as much of a balance. We do allocate interest quarterly, so this reflects all 4 quarters of the year interest earned.
So the 342 is also an interest earned?
Yeah, that one is a LAIF fair market value adjustment. Basically, LAIF is the state's investment pool, as you probably know, and their market value will adjust based on market trends, either up or down. So they quarterly will make a market adjustment, either up or down, from the original cost of those investments in a upward trending market where it's getting better. they will have a gain, and a downward trending, they'll have a loss, and this actually books it. So it's a positive amount, which means it's a gain, which is good for the fund. And so that's a kind of a windfall based on market conditions of existing investments.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from Mr. Pressley? Anyone in the public would like to make any comments or questions? Mr. Brenner?
Sorry. So I appreciate the numbers, but I thought that at least from what I believe would be a layman perspective, it's a little confusing.
Sure.
Where there's a whole column that I feel is just absolutely unnecessary, the period activity, which
Right.
I'm assuming is June only.
Correct.
But we're looking at a fiscal, because it says 23-24 period ending 6/30, which makes sense if you're looking at fiscal, but then that column just becomes really confusing as to how it fits in there. I understood it and just deleted it in my mind, but I think that we can make the reporting easier for public consumption by not having extra numbers that really just confuse things, where it's hard to figure out what it means and what it's how it affects the overall numbers.
Good point. Yep.
Overall, everything looked good. Even though we made a little bit less than what we anticipated, we're still making a whole lot more than what we originally believed we would be making when we passed Measure V. There were a couple of things, just things that kind of piqued my interest a little bit, and it's me being nitpicky because I feel I have to come up with something rather than nothing. But this was specifically voted on for roads, and I get it that we're using it for compensation of salaries for those that are working on the roads. But when I see things like uniforms or cell phones, it kind of pops out at me as, is that really, especially for the amount, it would be nice if it was more direct connection to the road rather than a connection to being an employee of the city, where the city was going to do that in the first place. So that's my only little bit that I can come up with that I feel might be from the public's perspective, something that doesn't fit, and just so I thought I'd express that.
It's a good point. And we can maybe lower the amount of line items and just have more general categories. They're all valid, expenditures like you indicated, but it does cause unnecessary maybe discomfort for certain people as far as seeing, certain benefits or what have you. So good point.
Well, I actually like the transparency of digging down into the weeds so that we're not looking like we're not showing everything. I like the digging down, and I like the transparency of saying like, yeah, these guys have cell phones. We contact them when they're working on their cell phones. That's something that we have to pay for because, they're working on our job, our time, and we pay towards their cell phone. So I think it's legitimate to post that and have people ask any questions about it. If they think not, if they think, uniforms are not a good thing or whatever, then let's have the discussion. But in a lump sum figure isn't, I think, what Bruno wanted to do.
I'm not looking to hide anything. And again, it only adds up to less than like $2,000, but I just know it's the way that it was passed was for direct cost to the roads. This is to me an indirect, and just thought I'd express it.
Yeah, and I would like to ask that too, because when we talked about Measure V is specific to this project, and the regular staff for roads and their maintenance should be identified. Maybe I'm just not seeing it.
I think we had that discussion quite a few times. I brought it up, is that the Public Works crew took up a big chunk, a third of the budget and these type of expenses. What I was told, and I guess it might be true, I don't know, maybe somebody could address it, is that if it weren't for the Measure V funds, we wouldn't have a Public Works crew to speak of because there'd be no money for them. So when you want to maintain and upkeep the roads, I think it's pretty reasonable to assume that the cost of maintaining a crew including uniforms and all that, would be applied. It's not my first choice. I want to buy asphalt, paved roads, but in the meantime, if you're gonna maintain drainage and you're gonna have a crew to do it, that's gonna help keep the roads that we have in decent shape. I can't see an argument about not spending money for the crews unless we have another source of income. That's all we got. So
But we had that source of income before we all started.
Not with the number of employees that are in Public Works crew.
That's right.
So there's a,
There's a big difference in the staffing available for Public Works
Right.
because of Measure B.
okay, and I guess I'm just making sure we're not putting our whole staff.
my understanding is that the funding that we get from gas taxes, what else that is used for the public works or has been historically used, has actually shrunk. The state's actually withdrawn a lot of that support, changing the amount of gas taxes. So I argued about not having to pay for this crew and just buying asphalt, but I think it's unreasonable under the circumstances that we have to do it. And I don't see an alternative.
And you're correct that when we started, it was about a third because we were only making about 1.5, 1.6 million on a 1%, if I remember correctly. But now it's like 1/5 because we've grown. So I don't see the salaries growing in the sense, I mean, obviously it's probably going up 2%, 3%, whatever the annual increase is, but I don't feel like they are growing in the salary expenses at that same ratio as we're growing in the amount of sales tax that we're receiving, which I think is healthy to see that more of a percentage of the revenues of Measure V are going directly to the roads.
Especially since the proceeds are going up. I agree.
We have a parks crew and we have a roads crew, and specifically the roads crew that does the work on the roads is paid from gas tax and Measure B because those are strict funds for those types of activities. So the parks crew isn't paid for Measure B, obviously. And like Bruno said, you know, the more work that we do, you know, it's an allowable use in the ordinance, but the more work that we do, the more people that we need. So
What is the total public works budget allocated to all of this? I'm not talking about the construction, I'm just talking about the payroll and to run the public works crew that includes the parks and everything else that they do, drainage, cutting weeds, the whole 9 yards. I'm guessing it must be in the $1 million range.
I can have that for you in just a minute.
Okay, thank you. I'm not talking about construction, I'm just talking about the ongoing costs, the crew that we support,
Right.
including equipment and uniforms and cell phones and
Right.
the whole 9 yards.
While you're looking that information, what I will say from what we've seen and what we were told before is you still have your public works crew doing a lot of prep work for the construction that's going to happen, like trimming trees, cleaning up culverts, whatever it is. I've seen them digging out Olympic, trying to find where the old curb used to be. They found it. But I see your crew doing all the prep work in order for the contracts to have to be as minimal as possible, and it's just laying out the asphalt or whatever else comes along with that. So I'm still seeing that. That's what you told us was going to happen, and that seems to be what is still happening.
I guess what I'm looking for is whatever the total budget for the Public Works Department is, what percentage of that comes from Measure B funds, is paid for by Measure B funds, because they're actually doing other things besides Measure B work.
Looks like, if you look at just this section here, you're looking at like 2.8 million, so subtract a little bit of that for interest and principal.
Sorry, I'm just gonna pull up the budget. So on our website, you can go to the finance department and see our fiscal year 24-25 budget. And it gives an overview of all of the expenses, and you can break it down as far as this is general fund expenses. So as you can see in general fund, we have about 77.96% of the general fund goes towards salaries, about $65,000. Then we have Measure B, sales tax. So we have about 2.6 million budgeted in revenues for this fiscal year. And let's see, personnel services, 33.65% or about 988,000 for personnel in the Measure B expense.
Pretty close.
So then we've got 1.6 million in debt service, the bonds, capital equipment, 176,000. Indirect costs. Supplies and materials, 35,000. Project funding.
Sorry, you're making me dizzy.
I'm sorry. The Measure B loan expense, 12.6 million. And this is all on our website under the finance department. If you go to our budget. So I'll try to slow down for you. All right, this is gas tax. In gas tax, we budgeted revenue of about 893,000. I could see historical, but I can't get it off of this page. And then for gas tax personnel, oops, I got to scroll down. For gas tax personnel, it's about 411 budgeted. 411,000, sorry. So those are the three major personnel allocation, but budget funds. That
So you've integrated, the public works budget has a combination of the gas taxes and the Measure B funds. So
well, yeah, it always has.
yeah, well, obviously, like I said, I don't know how you can argue with not spending the money on wages because you have to maintain roads. So, from what I saw out there in the Park Woods area, you know, terrific improvements. Anybody else have anything on that line of thinking? Otherwise, I'm going to move on to my next line of thinking. My next question is, going forward, we're going to have to service this line. That should say fairly stable as far as the amount we're going to pay, which will be on that debt service, which would be what, 300 and something thousand a year. Is that correct?
I think that, Matt, do you know the answer to that one?
Debt service is about 1.5 million a year.
No, on the loan?
Paying it back? Yeah.
On-
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused. Is that it's a $15 million loan? Is that correct?
I believe so, yeah. And so the debt service schedule is already prepared going out those, I forget if it's 15 or 20 years. And
Is it average per year is what I'm getting at?
yeah, average is about 1.5.
500 in interest. On here.
All right, so going forward, you have to budget, and the jobs that you're gonna be doing are gonna be smaller scale, of course, because we'll have less money available. So if you add up the money that's being spent on the crew plus the debt service, subtract that from the 2.6 million that we're getting through the Measure V funding, what do you anticipate the yearly spending to be?
Do say exact figure.
We're looking at about 2.6 million a year that you're collecting in Measure B taxes, and if 1.6 is going to debt payment, that means there's $1 million left to for salaries and for those working on the roads and for other projects, which is why when you look at the map for the future projects, they're a whole lot smaller in scope, but there's not going to be that much money left over from each year to pay off the debt and to continue doing more projects.
And the interest will come down as we pay $1 million principal, then it's gonna be less interest next year, following years.
Can we get a jumbo loan?
I heard it was, we borrowed at 3.2 and I think the Leif account at the time was paying 3.9.
Yeah.
So it was a net gain, which was pretty good, which kind of explains holding on to it for a year before we actually allocated the money to these big projects that are going on. At least we made money on that money in the meantime.
And that was the city council really did step in and help us.
So just to let you know, and gas tax can mean so many different things, because there's the HUDA, there's SB1, there's an extra bonus that I believe you get $500,000 for being a self-help city with the taxes. In 2021 or 21-22 fiscal year, the total was 658,797. 523 the following year. I'm not even gonna tell you the 23-24. That one's weird. It says 74,000. That's gotta be wrong. But now it's 893. So I don't know that it's going down. It looks like it might be going up. But what it pays for might be going down.
Hopefully.
No, meaning the amount of road that you can pay for
Yeah.
might be decreasing. You might have more money in your hands, but less road to build.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board?
So are you done with your presentation? Do you have more? I know you want to talk about like there's a map in the materials and stuff like that. So I don't want to ask my question too soon, but it has to do with the future years as well, similar to, right?
Right, so this is the map. It shows projected going forward year by year. The different colors represent the year of that project. That may be what some of the people in the.
Do you guys mind if I do Vanna real quick?
Want to go up and take a look.
So what's the blue is 2025, I believe?
Yep.
Can I come over there so I can see it better?
What was that?
Can I come over there and see it better?
You can go to the corner, but not in front of the board members. So this is 2025. What color is 2026? Because it's hidden.
Darker blue.
So like this?
These, yeah, Cerrone Ridge, Robinson.
Yeah, it looks like Robinson right there.
in that area.
So that's all 2026. Are there any other blue in the area? What's the following year? 2027.
Is it the break?
I think
It's a
this,
darker green.
It's down.
I think this lady's interested in
I'm
Ridgeview.
interested in Lakeside Village
Yeah.
where I
Yeah,
live.
yeah.
So that's not there. That's 2030. Oh, there it is, the darker green.
Oh,
Oh, that's Lasky.
So that's 2027?
Yeah. Yep.
Which 2027 is the dark green.
I think
Lasky.
she's interested.
Yeah,
Is that Lakeside Village there?
yeah, that's Lakeside Village,
What year is that?
2030.
2030, you told me 2029.
Oh, sorry, 2029. I meant, yeah,
2029.
sorry.
Okay, what happens when our roads continue to fall apart between now and 2029? Because that's
You
what
could
they're
submit a
doing.
service request for potholing,
Excuse me?
and you could submit a service request online to build pothole.
Yes, I will do that.
Okay,
No, I don't want the potholes, so that's what you've done.
I know, what I'm
Roads are
saying is
falling
while we're
apart.
waiting for this is what you can do in the meantime. We can't get to everybody all at once.
So what's 2028?
2020.
This or the yellow?
It's a brighter green.
So brighter green, this is 2028, and that's
40th and
Yule.
Yeah, 40th and Yule, and
Okay.
Getting
I
closer.
think Valley also.
Is that Westfield?
Yeah.
You'll.
There you go,
Fort
Sharon.
and
It is much worse
and,
than you will have a house on one side, both of them.
Where's Valley?
It's the
Just
street,
a little
I don't think it's highlighted, but it's.
Maybe it's right here? Because I see some green dots right here.
I don't know what the dots are.
Okay. And then this is 2029 in purple.
Yeah.
So Olympic and the village area is the 2029?
Olympic, we're actually doing a grant.
Okay, I would hope so.
Soon.
I would hope so.
Yeah, soon. It's being designed.
And then the yellow one was 2030?
Yep.
So that's the Siwa and
Like Arcata, Ukiah.
yeah.
And then there's,
Okay.
Upper Bank Road being done now.
Yeah, yeah, we
Is that
have.
not being available?
It's online already for where the meeting is. So if you go to agendas and clearlake.ca.us, then you can find the attachment and it'll have that map there.
We're also doing Dam Road, east of Lick, and then we're gonna pave it up to almost.
Oh, is there one in there?
Who makes that decision?
To the left.
City Council.
The city council. Okay, so you've added, the pieces of road that weren't there and was requested by the city council.
Some of those roads that were added to the current project was a result of us having extra contingency money left over and trying to make the most of the project. And so with that decision came from a group of.
I can't find, where's Mullen? I can't find Mullen.
And Ellen and
Let's see.
some of the city council.
Look for the
members
main
didn't know about
streets.
it,
There's
but
Olympic.
it wasn't-
That's Olympic. There's Austin. There's Austin.
And I guess what I'm looking at.
These are the tree
is
streets.
that You've got a lot of little.
Oh, here's my street, Liddell. It's not, I'm not even on the map.
There's Mullen right there. Doing something really
Gotcha.
bundle all those.
This is my street, Liddell. There's no plan.
Another one?
I think you're being left out. I think you should speak up. This,
You're doing such a small
To look.
amount. That
it's
you're
Olympic and
bringing
that's
people
Austin.
in.
Very good.
Because we're not doing these by ourselves, right? This is, we have to contract this.
Well, I can't
So
tell what
do
that
we
is.
look
But this
at
is a lot of
Kind of
work.
doing another bundle.
Have you been
for
out
these
to this
little
area
ones. I
here?
know we've got one year
You
is
should
2
see it.
streets.
I
one
was,
year
oh,
is
really?
like,
They've
you
fucking
know,
blown away.
2
It's all paved.
blocks, so.
All this area is all paved. And they're catching a bunch of these streets. This one, wasn't paved before, it is now. Yeah.
You're trying to do
Yeah,
multi-year.
this is.
I think that's outside
This
of
is
our
the
scope
park.
of that
Is that the
required
park?
that service and that
Park
required
Woods,
for
huh?
the
Yeah, all these are, well, they're working on these now. If you drive out there.
We're
currently on red?
Percentage of your general
Yeah.
funds. I don't
If you
know
drive
if
out
they
there,
are-
you'll see all of these are paved and they're
Yes,
working on these as
policy
we
if they
speak.
reach their max
So they're working on
capacity
some of
or
these streets.
they
Oh,
are,
they're just going
or if
down
they're
on it.
available. But that would
But
be
when
up
you
to them.
get to the point where you're only doing 2 streets and not even a full 2 streets, you got that dark green, what it's like.
Right, but you're only getting, as we see, we're getting 2.6 million in and we're spending $1
I
million.
was trying to see, can you see what that says?
Debt
What does that
service.
say?
So you only have $1 million. So
I don't know.
how many streets can you do for $1 million that year?
$1 million will get you 1 mile of road.
So
Give
you
or
can see the breakdown on here, how many miles each of the subsequent years are.
Yeah.
And so,
And I think it's in the messaging that, okay, you could have waited for your road to be fixed over the course of the next 5 to 6 years, or we did what we did, as well, the city did what the city did, to go into debt service and do a whole lot of projects in 1 year, maybe 1.5 years, depending on the status of the projects. But I think it's in the messaging of, it could have either taken a whole lot longer, and what's on these projected dates, which are not static, but projected, that those would be 5, 6 years further on down the road if everything had kept going the same as it was before. So I think it's important to just remind people that we've slimmed down the timeline for getting a lot of these roads fixed versus where we were in 2016, 17 when we originally started this process.
We're paving almost 20 miles of road for about $12 million this year.
amazing.
That's pretty impressive.
Addie,
Almost 20
I was
miles.
up there with my nose in the map when you talked about you actually did some change orders and added on a bunch of streets. I'm guessing Peony,
We did Mid Boxwood and we're adding the rest of Sulphur Bank to the county line in Clear Lake Park.
yeah,
Dam
What
Road.
was the total cost of those that you awarded on the change order? Just out of curiosity. Is it because you saved the contingency
Yes.
because things are
Yes,
going so
yes,
well?
Yes,
Congratulations on that and to the contractor out there. But yeah, I was, a lot of these roads like Peony and Boxwood and these others have never been paved in parts of Sonoma. They've been dirt forever and they weren't part of this project and you guys were just able to take advantage of the unit cost for this paving and add this in. Great job. I mean, I drove out there. I was like, wow.
and we try not to jump from like, say, one end of the city to another, it's just not efficient to do that. So when we add it, we try to make a complete streets area as the park, as you see out there, we just added an X, and that was in working with Canocta Unified, we, instead of the Safe Routes to School grant, we added to that to make it help accommodate the school, like say in Como, to have an alternate way of going in there to make it safer. We're looking at alternatives to that, such as one way, but we are paving the roads to aid the school district in that as well.
Everything you're saying makes perfect sense. It's common sense to take advantage of there. On those unit prices, they just transferred over, or did you renegotiate those, or? how
Some
did-
of them I actually got them to negotiate down on the unit price,
Uh,
but most of it is just the unit price, which on that job is like 140, 180 a ton.
Well, when you're doing that much, the unit
Yeah.
price is gonna be lower. And, nice job. That's all I can say about that. People out there must be thrilled.
Thank you.
Any other additional comments from Zoom or the room?
I still look at whether we can look at a future bundling, because you're looking at such small pieces of project, or are those all being done in-house?
Not in-house, not.
So you
Big
got a
contract.
contract somewhere.
How much of, grant money have you integrated into all this spending? I saw a number of online of $68 million. And we know we haven't collected that much in 7 years.
I think we have a bunch of different grants, so I'm not sure of the number that you
Yeah.
saw.
In regard
Isn't it
to paving.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
regards to paving, I couldn't quantify it at this time, but there's a lot out there. Like, we get 500,000 from the local partnership program, formulaic program. I'm also writing a grant right now for the local partnership competitive for up to $4 million. We also have roundabout construction money in the amount of 5.5 STIP funds that was allocated to us, which we are in design. Now, I know that's not really what we would consider road paving, but is more of a safety factor, but it will include some paving as well in there.
That's
Yeah.
self-help.
Active transportation funding. There's HSIP funding out there, which we have not received yet, but all the other funding I spoke of, we have received in the past few years.
I think it's important for people to understand the state of California looks kindly upon cities that decide to help themselves. Because we passed this Measure V funding and we are a self-help city, they're much more likely to award us these grants. It kind of moves us up the list in the line, and you guys are taking good advantage of that. I appreciate that.
The $68 million wasn't all for roads.
Yeah, but
It was all the grant funds together, which partially pays for our code enforcement program too, so.
yeah,
Covers
any
a lot.
idea how much went to roads? I think
don't
all
know
of the money to pave the park out,
College Park.
yeah, Quillet
Lake
Park.
Park, Southwell Park, and Tree Streets are all Measure B. There's no grant funding.
Okay, but the one that was out.
The sulfur fire.
Yes, yes, that was a grant, but it wasn't
CDBG.
PG&E money.
Because HCG.
CDBG.
Yeah.
And Arrowhead Burns Valley and
That's big. I mean, that's
Olympic and-
huge.
Arrowhead, Burns Valley, and Olympic will be CDBG funding as well.
Right.
So one thing I worry about is, so obviously you still want to do as many projects as you can because you don't want to just sit still and just pay off the debt service. You have some extra revenues and so you're putting it back in. I'm not seeing or understanding because I would feel that your amount of maintenance work for the streets that have been done, especially those that are now about to be 5 years old, 4 years old, and so on. The maintenance work is gonna start increasing, so I'm not sure how I see that being projected in the future. Granted, maybe you've already, that's why those projects are getting slimmer and slimmer. But there's one other thing that I feel, again, without being an engineer, without being a road construction guy, I'm just giving you my anecdotal experience of seeing things. I'm seeing a lot of big cats crawling on brand new streets to get to where the projects are, and I'm like, no. Don't, and so, I don't know what they're called, but it's basically like a steamroller, but with the teeth, so that it stamps.
Sheets. Or the sheets.
And when I'm seeing that rolling on Arrowhead that has just been fixed so it can get out to the park, I'm thinking, what are we doing? This is going to
So
destroy.
you're talking about a sheep's foot compactor on a paved road?
Yeah.
Somebody should have got fired, in my opinion.
There's been a lot of heavy equipment going out to Holiday Island, back and forth, truckloads of dirt going out there.
This next slide.
Yeah.
Oh, look.
This
Yeah.
next slide.
That's what's been going on, but they parked right there, at the park area where they're parked on 13th and, Sulphur Bank, and I followed that guy up and down Arrowhead, and I worry that we're looking at areas that are good to do, but maybe geographically it doesn't make sense to go through a good road in order to reach where the project is. Maybe we need to slowly move the kind of slide across the city to get our projects done rather than one here, one there, and all of a sudden we're having to use heavy equipment on just redone roads, which is only going to deteriorate them that much faster because they are some pretty heavy duty equipment and they hurt the roads. So I've seen that. I don't know if that was a mistake,
That was a
but
mistake.
I do see it more often than I'd like to. And the big trucks that are coming in with hauling in all the asphalt, hauling in out the dirt, in the dirt, all of them, they're using the really good roads that we've just created for them, which leads me to believe that those roads will just deteriorate a whole lot faster. We'll have to figure out how to keep the maintenance up and so on and so forth. So it's something that as I see the 2026, 2027, are we identifying the right one for the next project so we're not utilizing the brand new roads to reach those next projects? That's all I'll mention.
I would think if a sheep's foot compactor traveled up a road in warm weather, you'd know it because the marks would still be there.
I thought he left a mark on the uphill of Arrowhead where there's that up and down before that 5-way stop.
You can put a smooth drum roller on any road, it's not gonna hurt it.
Pictures.
I
was snapping pictures.
You gotta let us know.
well, that guy should get his paycheck. That shouldn't happen ever. That's a no-no.
Is there a time, I guess, an end date to this Measure B project? Will it just continue on without an
It
end date?
sunsets. Bruno, what year
It's
does
a
it-
20-year tax, so 2036.
2036.
2036. Okay, any further discussion, comments? Seeing none,
I'll make one last comment. I think you guys have been doing a fantastic job. I think it's very personal of an issue for people who live in the city. If your road has not been fixed, then it feels wrong the way that it's being done.
Yes.
But the city needs to look at the city as a whole, not just as individuals who are being loud and want something. And the amount of work that's happening, the amount of change that's happening, your pavement index score, all of that is showing that there's good work being done. And I think it's about getting people to recognize that overall the roads are better. It might not be yours personally, and you guys will get there. It's just a matter of time, but you can't do it all at once, and you can't borrow all the money in the world and pay what you can't afford. But I appreciate what you guys are doing, and I think it was smart to get the loan. I think you guys did a good job of catching it before it went up to 7% interest rate. So I thought it was a really good timing and really good idea.
To address your question a little bit more about when your road's gonna be done. The city council actually wanted this group to have some input on that, in addition to the engineers and the public works people. but the city council decided to keep that for themselves. So you need to call them up and let them know that you want to get your road
Well,
done
I've
too.
already talked with Joyce, and the reason I'm concerned is because when I bought the house 21 years ago, the streets were still good in the village. And I've seen them deteriorate. And I was against Measure B, when it first came up. I know it was voted on 3 times. And our street has been, we got all kind of, what do you call it? There are problems with our street. I live on Lakeside. There are problems, and I've seen you all come and patch them, and before I know it, they've deteriorated again and again and again. So that makes me angry.
The
Because I've
lion's
seen
share
other
of the,
streets that have been done,
yeah,
some streets that have never been paved, and I'm happy they're getting paved. But if I wanted to live on a dirt road, I would have stayed on 43rd Avenue,
I agree
where I
with you
lived for 3
completely.
years, instead of where I bought my house.
I agree with you completely, is that we paid for roads and they should be
They
there.
should be maintained.
Yes, I agree. And the majority of when you say Lakeshore Village, most of it was done. All the interior streets,
On the other
Meadowbrook,
side.
right. And the harbor. My son lives kind of near where you are and
But our side wasn't done.
yeah, it wasn't. I agree. So you need to call your councilman and let him know that,
You want to move from 2029 to something else?
I want it to next year at least.
Well, I do
Well, I'll
think
be out here raising sand.
I agree with you. And when we see our roads deteriorating and them paving streets that were not paved, we all bought on a street that was paved for a
Yes.
reason. The quality of our road was part of that reason. And to now just have it torn up and almost, I drive my car at about 5 miles an hour up my street that's been paved, that because it is so bad.
And some of the new paved roads, people are complaining, people are driving too fast.
Yes, well,
What are you gonna do, you
that's
know?
dumb.
Call law enforcement, have them put one of those, mile an hour.
on behalf of
Pick
the
your
driver.
battles.
Yeah, on
Some
behalf of the
problems are
driver.
called good problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lived on Lakeshore Drive and they redid it, and instead of hearing a trailer from 2 miles away going dun 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 all the way down the road, it was smooth and quiet.
Yeah.
So there were a couple speeders, but otherwise it was amazing.
Now it's just those loose potholes driving me nuts.
On Lakeshore?
People- Yeah, people driving the potholes.
Wow.
Anyway, gentlemen have a question?
Yeah, I came here originally on the work path, but talking to the personnel here earlier, I kind of got eased down because some of the issues, I didn't find issues for 5, 6 years now. And they're addressing, and I appreciate that. And, you are looking at it and addressing. But I'll say this. That road that you guys did, you talk about maintenance, from Moss up to
Davis?
yeah, it's cracking right in the center, all the way down.
And
It's like it's separated from the center all the way down.
if you don't mind my making a statement, we just signed a new contract, I think, between the county and the city, because the county's supposed to pay 70% and the city 30%.
77.
Sorry, I get straightened out when the county has to do but the county pays the largest percentage because it's a county facility at the end of the road. And so it's a partnership between the city and the county to redo Davis and Moss every so often because of the usage for the
I'll add into that, one thing you should consider, if you're gonna do that road again, you should consider Phillips adding in, because there's only 2 major ways out of that yard. And a lot of guys are coming from the yard, taking Phillips, going to get something drink or get eat or whatever. And they wear the heck out of Phillips. Phillips gonna go this year, I'm gonna tell you that right now. That 6 blocks is gonna go. It's gonna accelerate this year. And then they turn down and go down 40th. So I'm saying if you're gonna redo that, you need to look at that also, because that heavy equipment is overusing that street.
Did you have a question?
I do have, I'm glad that you mentioned that. Where is the agenda? But I don't see on the map a redo, what is going on my computer? A redo of 40th Avenue, am I correct? Yeah, I don't see 40th highlighted as a future project.
We're applying for a grant right now to
Okay,
do all
okay.
the
'Cause
40th.
that road scares me for multiple reasons, and I hope that the grant gives you the ability to put sidewalks. If you ever want to walk that, I dare you. Because it is probably the most dangerous road for pedestrians, I think, in the entire city. And it gets really dark at night, and people who are living in the avenues want to go to Cash and Cool, or Cashing, no, I think it's Cash and Cool. To go get drinks, food, whatever, because it's the closest convenience store in the area. But that is probably one of my scariest roads to drive on, especially at night. And so glad to hear that you're trying to get grant funding. And is Caltrans planning to put it on that for, that intersection right there? Because it's pretty choppy right now.
So it'd be 40th from Moss-ish to Boyles, and then Boyles from 40th to 18th is what we're going for.
Okay.
What kind of grant is that?
A local partnership program, competitive grant.
It's the advantages of the self-help, yeah.
All right, is there any more discussion, or would a board member like to offer the resolution?
I'll offer the resolution.
Okay, second?
Sure.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Offer the resolution number OC 2024-01, resolution of the Measure B Oversight Committee and the City of Clear Lake declaring compliance with section 3 through 7.14 of ordinance number 189-2016. Do you want me to read this, or is it okay?
You can go on and we can just do a phone screen. We don't need them.
Okay. Okay,
No, you don't have to read it.
okay, so we'll just do it in title only. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No opposed, the motion passes unanimously.
Conrad, do you mind if I have a follow-up question? So I know that there's state auditing that happens specifically to Measure B, because you have to get it set up at the state controller's office or the, not thinking of the right department, the
Franchise tax.
franchise tax board. Do you have audit? It'd be nice to see the audits here, to kind of see the previous audits, kind of what your scores were, any concerns, just because it would help educate us in what maybe we missed or what we should be looking at. But I know that there's a specific part for special taxes to make sure you follow what the voters approved.
And I would defer to Director Cressy, but I believe that we were just getting up to speed on last year's audit. I think that they're finishing it up. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, I just came on a month ago and we finished the financial audit and the single audit, which includes all the grants, federally funded grant funding, and that was for the 23 year. We're not skipping a beat. We're starting the 24-year audit, and that is on track. There was just one finding, a material weakness in the city's financial processes, really related to all stem from staff turnover. We've had, I think, 2 directors in the last couple years, and so we're hoping to. So I'm coming in as a consultant to help to provide a stable resource to the department and work with staff to bolster it. So I think we're on good footing now. To we also have other consultants that are helping with the grant management. There's a whole firm that the city council approved a contract with a while back, and they're now, all the funding for Sulphur Road, and that is now coming to completion, all the CDBG funding, they're helping manage that with the help of Bambi there. And then also there's a accounting firm that also is helping with a lot of the legwork. And my job now is coming in is to help oversee it and make sure everybody's utilized to their full potential as far as the consultants and see things, help shepherd things through. So as far as bringing a financial audit to the Measure V committee, we can do that at whatever time that makes sense. I think with the annual report, typically the audit's not done till closer to November, December each year. And so it would probably need to be a separate meeting versus this meeting, which I think historically has been in October. But yeah, so I think things are looking good in that regard, and I'll defer to staff or Alan, the city manager, on what he would prefer on bringing the audit report forward. We are bringing it to council, the 23 audit, on November 7th. Thanks.
And I appreciate that Measure V in your audit, because you're doing a comprehensive city audit, which probably includes PEG TV and LAFCO, as well as all city functions.
Yes.
But Measure V is kind of like an enterprise fund. What comes into Measure V can only be spent on Measure V. It doesn't go anywhere else. So is it already kind of its own separate report within the single audit that you're doing?
It's broken out in the financial statements as its own fund, and it's kept separate as a kind of a special revenue with restrictions, and the related capital projects that it does. There's no separate financial statements that is only Measure V. That would be a report we can compile and provide to the Measure V committee. As far as the audits, there is a state gas tax audit that's done each year, and we're about to start that for this prior year. And that there's reporting forms online that we need to submit all of the street related costs, and those are audited pretty scrutinized in pretty much a lot of detail. The financial audit, that is done, and it, like you said, is comprehensive, includes all funds, and they have their procedures. But I can say it's not as detailed. But I think this committee, provides oversight and a level of assurance that the funds are being spent for what the voters approved and what's needed. And, it's only going towards streets. And I think that is what it was set up for, and it works well. Does that answer your question?
I mean, it does, but I think it's up to this committee whether we want to request, because I wouldn't mind seeing the 22-23 audit. I don't need to see this year's. Next year, when we meet again, I can see the 23-24, but I just think it's added material to help ensure that there's a second layer and we can see the report that says it is being used correctly. We concur with what the committee has said. And so I don't know how the rest feel about that, but that's just me.
Yeah, I like that. And I also, as we look at some of these are such small projects, can we bundle them? Is there an opportunity for additional grants that we could go for, such that you're, instead of doing one or two little roads, you're, increasing the capacity in terms of what we can put together and have a bigger project.
And then also don't forget that all these projects take separate engineering, geology and so forth. So that's why this big project, we didn't do anything for a year because we had to get it all set up and ready to go. And it's the same thing with these smaller projects. They may have constrictions based on availability to get the funds and the work done.
Yeah.
And the staff.
Oh, not the staff. Come on. You guys can work.
I mean, what's 20 grants to manage? Let's just throw a few more.
Says the grant person.
Trust me, we'd love to get 10
I'm
more
gonna
grants.
respectfully disagree with that. I think that it sounds great and it is great, but it asks a whole lot from the council to look at, again, further debt services, which that's not what we're a part of. So I think it's a comment that can be made publicly when they're looking at their street programs and what they're choosing to do. But I don't know that we should be telling them to continue going into debt in order to do more projects that are projected to be done. That's just my opinion.
I've got a question that I just noticed my notes here. when, we've got a lot of paving to do here on the tree streets and then in Bella Laguna. When do you project that they're gonna shut the paving down as far as the availability of asphalt? At what point, are we gonna get those done before the end of the year?
Yes.
You think so?
Really?
Even considering the temperatures dropping?
We paved in December.
I personally paved here in December. Yeah, the plan is to do FDR and paving in November before Thanksgiving on the tree streets and on Ballpark. Clearlake Park is probably 75%.
Yeah, I drove out there, you guys
Yeah.
go into town. But on that same line, has there been any holdup with the new water main installations?
Yes.
The water main installation on Louisville and Clement are complete, and they're back out there doing the curb and gutter and prepping for FDR in a couple weeks.
Okay, so has there been any change orders, any costs incurred by the city, waiting, the contractor having to switch gears and get the water mains in? I heard they weren't gonna do them, and then all of a sudden they decided, amazing, they changed their mind. Was there any cost incurred by the city on the change orders?
No,
We're never gonna not do them.
Pardon me?
Sarah's here.
Sarah from Highlands Water Company, we were never gonna not do them.
I think we're not talking about Highlands.
Oh, wow, well, we're talking about
Well, I think we were trying to find an alternative solution.
Yes.
We realized that first solution was not going to work, and so we had to replace the water mains, and Highlands contracted directly with Argonaut, who's the
Mhm.
contractor on that job, so
So they weren't
In
as
terms of
likely to
delays.
back charge you, yeah?
No.
Okay,
it was pretty seamless. It was really nice.
that was good thinking.
Mhm.
If they had to go home and somebody else was gonna put those mains in,
Yeah, they
fuck.
could have,
they would have back charged.
yeah.
Awesome.
Yep, and then on Clear Lake Park, Golden State has probably a couple thousand feet of water mains that they need to lower that are shallow, so that's gonna push a little bit of paving into next year.
Okay, so you're talking about the tree streets again, yeah?
Clear Lake Park.
Oh, Croy Park, okay. How about the tree streets? Are they replacing all those mains on all those streets?
The project that Consestimine was working on was completed last week with their main replacement, so they're out of our way now.
Awesome.
Yep, and that was a Golden State project.
And no back charges there either?
No back charges there. I don't think there's gonna be any back charges on the Clear Lake Park job. Golden State would incur any additional mobilization because of water mains being shallow.
Good job again. Thank you.
Sounds like people know what they're doing around here.
Little cooperation goes a long ways.
In fixing the things that we didn't know what we were doing. Or different code at the time.
So going back to Bruno's idea, do we want to include that in our future items or in letter G or our agenda? To be lagging year behind with the audit relating to Measure D funds?
I don't know, you think it's that important, Bruno?
I just think it's added documentation to support that we're doing it correctly.
This itemized list doesn't,
Audits go much deeper than that.
well, I'll go along with you if you think it's that important. I mean, I don't know why anybody would print nonsense on this, but okay. You want to hold their feet to the fire? I'm with you, buddy.
I don't think it's nonsense, and it's the year before that we'd be looking at, but I think it gives extra support for our decisions that we
Make the motion, I'll
That's
second.
2 years later.
make.
Make the motion.
I think consensus is good for the future agenda.
Okay. So we're consensus that we're gonna ask to provide that. Any other city reports? Anyone wants to give?
I think we've given them.
Give your thoughts to them?
Thank you, Matt.
Great. And
Thank
that's our future.
Thanks, Matt.
Motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Boy, look at these, all these seconds coming up.
Yeah. All right. Aye.
None? Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you.
You all.
So just